This is going to be a very good video. I'm in a very good mood. So welcome everyone. Today I'm showing you top 5 opening traps for the white pieces that I know for sure beginners and intermediate level players are falling for very often. So the first one is out of the Italian opening, which is very popular at all levels. And over here after bishop c4, bishop c5, we're going to be playing the main move, pawn to c3, with the intention of going pawn to d4. Typically black plays knight f6 to attack pawn on e4 and somewhat try to delay or pawn break to d4. We're going to be playing it anyways, but after e takes d4, instead of taking back on d4, we're going to be playing the move 5. And believe it or not, black has only one move in this position that is good for them, and everything else is just leading simply to a disaster. So for example, if they play knight to e4, we can play bishop d5, and the knight is actually trapped in this position. Alternatives are not better. For example, if knight to g4, we can take on d4. We're having absolutely amazing central control. Over here, white is considered to be winning objectively. h3 is going to kick away the knight to a bad square. You could take it later on h6. There's nothing more that we would want out of the opening. We are overwhelmingly better. However, there is a way for black to get out of this as well, just like everywhere else, of course. And the main move, the only move for black, is the move pawn to d5. So the idea is to counterattack the light square bishop of white. The complications of taking on f6 and taking on c4 benefit black. So white needs to move the bishop away, after which black now safely guarded that e4 square. And after c takes d4, we have somewhat equal position where white is holding slight advantage still. So even if you set up this trap, it's not like if opponents don't fall for it, you're going to be running into some kind of trouble. So best of luck, and I really hope that after e5, your opponents will not know the move d5. So let's move to the next one, which is a similar opening, but instead of bishop c5, some players like to play bishop e7, and that's actually one of the moves that I would recommend to beginners as well. The reason for why I would do that is because it prevents the so-called fried liver attack, and you're not running into some kind of complications that could happen after c3 and d4. However, I have an idea here for you as well. We're going to be playing d4 right away. Black must take as we're threatening to win the pawn, or push to win space. So after takes on d4, we're going to be playing the pawn move to c3. In this position, after they take, we have a fantastic move, queen to d5, attacking f7 in a way that they cannot defend it easily. And if they play knight to h6, which seems to be guarding f7, we can take on h6 in this position. So you could see that we're threatening the mate, so they don't have time to be taking the pawn on b2. In this position, the only move is to castle. Now we can take on g7 and safely guard the b2 pawn. And after king g7 and knight c3, white can castle and is considered to be much better because of the black's king being unsaved with a damaged pawn structure around. We have very nice lead in development, active queen, and even more space in the center. Let's move to the third opening, which comes right now after d4. Have d5, c4, knight f6, the so-called martial defense, which a lot of beginner to intermediate level players play very often. And I want you to have a good weapon against that. So we're going to take the pawn. And here we're going to be taking over the center. That's primarily the reason why this defense is not the best for black. After knight f6, we're going to be playing bishop to d3. Here we set up a small trap. I don't expect anybody to fall for that. So if they take this, we can give a check, and the black's queen would be lost. Most players, however, are going to be playing the move e6, and now I want you to play knight c3 to tease them to bring the bishop to b4, and then we're getting closer to our trap. So if they play bishop b4, we're going to play knight f3 and wait for them to castle, which will allow our trap. And believe it or not, at a lower level than 2000, for example, on leechess or chess.com, most players, according to the book that exists there, is castling or are castling there in this position. And so we can execute the tactical theme here of so-called Greek gift in quotes. So we're going to be playing e5, threatening the knight, which needs to leave. This gives us space advantage, and now we're ready for this amazing tactical idea that is called the Greek's gift. So we sack on h7, king h7, knight g5, and the queen is coming in depending on where the black's king goes. So if they go, for example, king g8, go queen h5, and we're threatening mate, and typically the win here looks like this. And this checkmate. So our opponents may also choose other squares. If they go h6, there is a discovered attack. by moving the knight away. And if they go to g6 square over here, there are many winning moves. You could play queen c2, queen d3, and all that. The best move is h4, protecting the knight, and in a lot of cases, we're going to be getting this pawn to h5. So for example, knight c3 looks dangerous, where they're threatening this discovered attack, but queen g4 just absolutely kills over here. We're threatening knight e6 discovered attack with checkmate ideas and winning the black's queen as well. For example, they could play f5 over here, and then h5, that's what we have that pawn there. h6, knight e6, discovered attack by the dark square bishop, and as they say, it's all she wrote. That's an opening trap against common defense at lower levels. That's called the Marshall defense. The fourth one comes from Queen's Gambit Accepted. I've gotten quite a few players with this one, where they take the pawn on c4, and after e3 they play a good move c5. If I take, then I'm going to be losing the right to castle, so they can take my queen. So typically I just win the pawn back on c4. After pawn takes d4, I quickly pre-move knight f3 and pretend, oh no, I made a mistake, I did not expect you to take on d4. And if they continue taking my pawns on e3, white can play bishop f7. And I have had quite a few games at even higher levels where this way I was able to win the black's queen. So if queen is left without the king's protection, which it is, this is the way white wins the game. And the fifth one comes from the Scandinavian Defense. e4, d5, takes queen d5, knight c3, and after the move queen e5, white can gambit the pawn with pawn to b4 move, and after queen takes b4, we have knight to b5. So in this position, we're threatening knight takes c7. Your opponents hopefully are going to play queen a5. If black is playing perfectly here, of course, black is going to be better, so that's a trap where it involves risks for you as white. Nevertheless, it ends up in such a cool theme. I gotta show you this. Bishop to c4 is played, and of course everybody just wants to kick away the knight, which is threatening right now the fork on c7. And if they play c6, we have a very beautiful theme here of a discovered attack. White can play bishop takes f7. All right, so they're going to be accepting the bishop, and I'll have queen h5 with a knight check follow-up where the black's queen is going to be dropping. For example, if g6 is played, knight to d6, and then win black's queen. So I hope you enjoyed these 5 traps that you can incorporate into your opening repertoire or try them for fun in blitz or bullet games. Consider hiring me as your personal online chess coach. I do this for a living for the last 11 years. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.